I have been making art basically since I was born. I think it's a combination of having inherent genetics for predisposed for making art, as well as having parents that always encouraged me to make art. I was always doing art classes in school, out of school, my whole life. In terms of college, I decided to go for architecture. So I attended Cornell University from 2003 to 2008, and I have a professional Bachelor of Architecture. I was born in Newburgh, but grew up in Cornwall. And so when we moved to Cornwall, I will never forget the first winter. I looked out mom and dad's window and I saw these gigantic orange things through the woods. And I said, Mom, Dad, what are those? And they're like, oh, those are sculptures. That's Storm King Art Center. And so ever since I was 5, it was part of a very normal idea that people made gigantic metal sculptures. Now, this is the approach to my studio, and the approach is kind of paramount importance to understand the context of where I create. This is shot on location on the Sweetman dairy farm of Warwick, New York. You can see that you're driving through some very old trees along the edge of a field. The boys had just made a whole bunch of hay bales. The corn is growing. There are tractors everywhere. And in the distance, you can see a cow pasture and a stream. And in the far distance, a field of alfalfa. And you're coming up the hill, approaching my studio, which I share with my husband. We created this space out of nothing. There was nothing there except a concrete pad and some hay bales back in the day. So welcome to agri-sculpture. Everything you see in terms of our studio makeup is a recycled material. And having nature and plants interact with all of these recycled materials is really the most fun and cool part about what I do. It's a big reason for why our studio is outside. We've talked about it many years enclosing it, but at the end of the day, even when there's an ice pack of 2 inches on the ground in the wintertime, it's just too beautiful to close out. So we see the sunsets in the studio every day. There are vines and flowers and all kinds of beautiful things that happen. There's butterflies, there's honeybees. An amazing thing about all of this is the transformation of something that's obsolete or dead into a structure for living, whether it's for humans or for plants or even for animals. Agri-sculpture is a combination of 2 words, agriculture and sculpture. I make a lot of my pieces, most of them out of antique farm equipment. Since about 2016 to 2019, I worked very closely with Orange Regional, and they had commissioned a number of sculptures, but this was the biggest one. It's called the Healing Stage, and they wanted a series of 7 sculptures craned up to the 2nd floor of the hospital to be viewed from the surgical waiting room. We got into this practice of creating plasma cut sculptures. I had done some fountains for the hospital, and they wanted a trellis piece to grow plants up. So we designed a trellis piece, and they loved it so much, they said, it's too beautiful, we're not going to put any plants on it to grow on your piece, but we actually want more of these pieces. So I began making what I call almost like a metal lace. There are figures and grounds, there's positive and negatives, and they're meant to be viewed from the inside, through the piece, at the piece, through the piece, and brings the nature inside. Recycling and sustainability is a huge issue that I'm always talking about because I'm almost always working with recycled materials. The fountains have recirculating water pumps, so it also speaks about water usage and mindfulness of your resources. 2020's projects were very, very political as well, but generally I stick to the themes of sustainability, environmental awareness, and being able to use recycled materials in an adaptive way. Coming from the world of architecture and construction, and also spending about 2 years during my time in Los Angeles making film sets, something they have in common is that they waste almost everything that they use. And I could not be a part of that. And so repurposing and recycling and using obsolete pieces to create new pieces, that's probably the most political statement that I carry through on a theme, being mindful. My favorite part of welding is the moment that piece A actually sticks to piece B. You can make the seemingly impossible happen. If they're sited properly, there's an extraordinary balance, there's a harmony, there's connections of things that normally would never be able to exist together. Never, ever, ever give up what your vision is. If you have an artistic idea or an inspiration or a thought process, go for it. Don't ever give that up. Don't ever quit. Don't ever stop that.
This program is made possible in part through the support of New York State Council on the Arts, Orange County Government, Shapiro's Furniture, and from donations from people like you. Please consider making a donation today at www.ocartscouncil.org. Thank you.